Hello there. One island nation in our region, in the South Asian region, has attracted more attention in terms of political turbulence, economic turbulence, and even rampant corruption. No, I'm not talking to you about Sri Lanka. I'm talking to you about the Maldives. You might ask me, it was a country where the former president, the first democratically elected president of that country, was arrested on terrorism charges. It was a country where the current president is accused of a number of corrupt activities. You might tell me that there is no Sri Lankan individual who's qualified enough or suitable enough to come and discuss about what is happening in the Maldives. You are absolutely correct. We are going to talk to the former president of the Maldives, Mr. Mohamed Nasheed. Hello sir, thank you for being on the show.
Hello, thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be able to speak to the people of Sri Lanka through your TV channel.
Thank you very much. I'm going to get to the point straight away. You were arrested on terrorism charges. You were at one point dragged on the streets. We saw this on the TV and we saw this on Maldives television stations as well. The president of the Maldives, the current president of the Maldives, is accused of a number of corrupt activities. We saw this on the TV once again. Who's to say that from your point of view, revenge is not in the menu?
Well, you see, revenge hasn't given us anything. If we go on thinking about the past and try to dig up the past, I don't think that we would be able to have a bright future. Our view is, and our aims are, to see if we can bring the Maldives on a more democratic track and to see how we may be able to have a free and fair election and peacefully transfer power. We do not intend to go running after after President Xi. I mean, even if when we do succeed, and we did not do that even in 2008. Now,
yes.
If your question is, are we going to take revenge?
Yes,
that
is exactly my question.
I would like to point out that in 2008, the same thing happened. I became the president, and President Gayoom was there in government for 30 years.
Yes.
But we did not pursue that. We did not go after President Gayoom. I've always had the view that the democratic process is going to bring more justice than perhaps a courtroom drama.
Yes.
So we would like to get democratic institutions built, and we would like to get them functioning. We have no interest in individuals.
But sir, keeping all that in mind, there are a number of corrupt activities, number of allegations against the current president of the country. Does this mean that you're going to leave all that aside as well?
No, I'm sure we must, rule of law must be adhered to, and we must govern only through rule of law. And if the law requires you to be investigated, if the law requires you to be charged, and if the law requires a sentence, that certainly would happen. But we should not have political motivation into it. And I don't think it is the function of politicians to talk about what the law might do and what the law would finally come out with a pronunciation. In my view, it's not the politician's job to do that.
In Sri Lanka, if you take a look at what's going on at the moment, we have a group called the Joint Opposition, where all the opposition parties have joined together. In your country, as we speak, you are also in support of the opposition, the majority opposition, Mr. Gayoom, Mr. Shakir and yourself and the other opposition parties have joined together in support of you. What do you have to say about this? Are you happy about it? Is that an achievement?
Well, during the last 15 years, our country has gone through a lot of experiences. All the political leaders have learned a lot of lessons. And we feel that to stabilize the country is very important. We are living in a period where there is again territorial interests on the Indian Ocean. Yes. So we must try and see how we may be able to stabilize the Maldives. If the Maldives is unstable, we feel that the Indian Ocean would become unstable. So for us, coming together, working together on a joint platform is very important for the future of our country and of the region.
I want to zoom out a bit and ask you, you have had the support of the international community when you were in power throughout. You had the support of the Sri Lankan president at the time as well. But coming to 2017 or the end of 2016, we saw the foreign minister of our country, Mangala Samaravita, going and meeting the president of the Maldives. Do you see this as a threat, or do you see this, how do you see this actually?
Well, you know, there's whoever who is in government in the Maldives, there's always good relations with the Sri Lankan government. But in my view, that has to continue. We gain far more. The people of the Maldives gain far more with Sri Lankan engagement. So we would like Sri Lanka to be more engaged with the government in the Maldives. And I think it was good that the Foreign Secretary went to the Maldives, the Foreign Minister went to the Maldives. And I'm sure the Foreign Minister would have raised issues of concern to both countries.
The Indian government, you had asked the Indian government to maybe cut ties with the Maldives president at the moment. So there is a contradiction to the statement you are making with regard to the international relations.
Well, Sri Lanka and India are very two different countries for the Maldives. I always use this example. For instance, in 1932, when we had our first constitution, the king, the Sultan at that time, dissolved the constitution, and the whole constitutional government was in Sri Lanka for 1.5 years. And then they later returned back to the Maldives after they were able to change the government. So, you know, Sri Lanka has always given us a safe haven, whoever who is in government. It doesn't really matter who is in government. And the social links, the people-to-people links that we have with Sri Lankan people are far greater than any other country. We are singular Muslims, actually. So, our country was Buddhist before. Right. And our relationship with Sri Lanka as cousins can never be forgotten, and it can never be overtaken by any other country. So I think the kind of connection that we would like with Sri Lanka would be different from other countries.
We see that there is an issue within Maldives at present, and that is why you too with your political parties are trying to create a change. But if you can tell me, why should there be change in the Maldives at the present context?
Well, we want to have a decent life. Everyone wants to have a decent life. They want to be able to live without fear of arrest, without fear of suppression. And we want to have a country where people can earn their rightful amount through their good work and through their hard work, not through corruption, not through any other irregular means. It is very obvious to do that we have to have proper governance. So in 2008 we brought in a new constitution, and this new constitution envisaged many freedoms that our people wanted. So we are slipping away from these freedoms. We are moving away from the 2008 constitutional ideas. So we want to bring the country back to where it was before and how the people want it.
It was an assassination attempt on the president of the country, and the vice president was implicated, and there is a Sri Lankan national also implicated in the whole incident that transpired. Do you think that the president was actually, there was an attempt on his life?
Not for 1 second. I do not believe that at all. There is no evidence to suggest this. No investigation has come out with this view. And there's never been, now how many, it's been almost 1 year. The poor boy is still there, languishing in our jails, with no trial, with nothing.
Yes.
So there's no evidence whatsoever on this. And it's very unfortunate that this is happening. I feel for the family of the boy or who is in jail. And we would hopefully, as soon as there is some changes in the Maldives, try to rectify the situation. It's very sad.
With what we see through the media that is coming out of your country, the president and the vice president of your country was accused of corruption charges. We saw a full documentary on Al Jazeera stating the same. Now we see that the Middle East is going to invest in one of your islands once again, and the people living in that area are in a dilemma as to what is going to happen. How can you change this? You were once a president. There are hopes of you coming yourself coming into power again. How do you hope to change this? How do you hope to instill trust among the people of the Maldives Islands?
Well, first I think we must provide an alternative development model.
Without selling the islands?
Without selling the islands. We are not against foreign direct investments. We are not. About 13% of our tourism trade is directly owned by Sri Lankans. And we like that. We would want to continue with that. They have good expertise and their investments give us good job opportunities, and it helps our development. And we have no issue with that. But we do not see the Saudi attempts as a straightforward commercial enterprise. We cannot, to start with, the government hasn't come out with the facts. The government has said nothing about the program that they want to enter with the Saudi government. While this is so, we hear from reliable sources that the government of Saudi Arabia has a joint venture cooperation with some Chinese entity, either registered in Singapore or England or London, to manage and build the properties that the Saudi government would purchase. So this is again another more serious worrying issue. We understand that some countries, these countries have territorial interest in the Maldives. And so for us, we must be able to stop this. The people of the Maldives doesn't like it. You would have seen the amount of protest that they went into, and finally the king had to back down and not visit. But I don't think that they would stop their enterprise at that. They would probably be looking into it and seeing how they may be able to circumnavigate this and come back again.
But President Nasheed, the government is not one person, or it's not two people together. It's a collective of ministers and a cabinet of ministers, so on and so forth. Hasn't anyone from the cabinet of ministers or any government party contacted you directly and expressed their...
A lot of them. Most of the senior generals in the military, most of them have contacted me. Senior police officers have contacted me. Judges have contacted me. A number of government officials have contacted me. Of course, they are unable to articulate this as we do, because we are the opposition. And we are engaged in this with the knowledge that this is what everyone wants. So we think that this would be successful.
When you create a joint opposition, like we call it here in Sri Lanka, when you create a joint opposition, you have to give certain promises to these opposition parties as well. You have to tell them, all right, we'll give you these ministries, or we'll give you these type of privileges. Do you think this is the right thing to do, or are you doing that? Or do you have a separate plan for these other parties that are joining you?
Now, an alliance, the standard structure of any political alliance would involve positions and would involve ministries and so on. So we've not been able to go out of the map and find anything new, other than just continue with the standard structures of these alliances. So ultimately, if it's joint government, it must have parties of all the colors in the government. But you must also have a singular view, objectives of ministries and objectives of the whole government. Many here in Sri Lanka would have issues with your government. They might have issues. But I would like to point out, you have come out from a civil war of 20 years. And if you compare this with any other country in a similar situation, let's say Latin American countries, but you've come out with a peaceful political process. You've been able to transfer power peacefully. Your judiciary is intact. Your military is intact. Your law and order situation is intact. Your economy is booming. So, in my view, now you have freedom of expression. Now you have freedom of assembly. And you are able to express your views. Of course, instant delivery of economic betterment can take a little while, especially when you come out of long years of conflict. So I think, I find the Sri Lankan model very, very attractive, and I really commend your government, both parties.
So that is what you want to achieve in Maldives, is that what you're saying?
You see, we do a lot of what you do.
You all didn't have a 30-year war.
No, we didn't have a 30-year war. So we, for us, but we've had conflict of our sort. So, you know, of course, yours is went into a very, very sad situation. And we don't necessarily, you know, I don't think anyone would want us to go into that situation at all.
Definitely.
So this is more the reason why we should all sit together and try to sort this out. So I think the alliance is very important, and I would give everything to make it work.
That's great. Former President Nasheed, when you were in power, you had the support, as I mentioned earlier, you had the support of all the international communities that surrounded you. Now, while you're trying to get back into power, we see once again a lot of countries coming forward to support you. Do you think that this support might have a dark side as well?
I don't think it's a support for me. I think it's a support for the views that we have. It's a support for democracy. It's support for human rights. We understand the processes that they want. So we live in an interdependent world, and you cannot be that removed from the international community.
They say you can't live like an island.
No, you can't live like an island, and you know, everything that you do is connected, related to something else that someone else is doing.
Definitely.
So we cannot hope to have that kind of sovereignty or that kind of independence. It doesn't exist anymore. But countries are run by international multinational agencies. Bulk of the revenue of any country is made by multinational agencies.
Definitely.
So I think it's very naive to talk about that kind of nationalism.
You're willing to take that risk, if at all, if it comes to that, you are willing to take that risk?
I really don't see a closer engagement with the international community as a risk. I think both sides must give, and I think what comes out from that is far better.
With everything that is happening in your country, we see that once again the people of the Maldives are being pressurized. They are the people in trouble, while you are here trying to give them a good signal. The current president is in the country. He's having his own political agendas. The international community is going to intervene. They might support you, they might support the current president. We don't know that yet. We as a country are looking at your country. The people are the ones who are suffering, actually, in real life. What do you have to tell to the Maldivian people?
Well, it's a struggle. And my message to them is, we must try and see a bigger picture than your immediate difficulties. We all have immediate difficulties. We need a job. We need a house. We need a sewerage system. We need good education. We need healthcare. We need transport. There's a number of things that the people want. And for them to be able to get them, you must have a bigger picture view. So your immediate difficulties, you must overcome them, and then seek out for the long term. And I think our people, I believe our people are resilient, our people are strong, and I believe that they can see that picture.
When we discuss with Maldivian journalists or Maldivian people, like you said, they are very nice people, but when you discuss with them, they have that sense of fear within them, because we saw an attempt was made on the life of the Attorney General himself in the recent past. There were several journalists who were murdered, several TV stations, radio stations ransacked. We saw this happening in your country. We had a past like that as well, and we still have that fear. We are talking about a situation where the person who is said to be responsible is still in power, so there is that fear. How do you think, or why do you think the people will all of a sudden look at you and see you as their leader?
You know, I don't work to be a leader. What I do is I do whatever I think is doable, whatever I think would be good for our people, and also for regional stability as well. Of the little that I've been able to do, they've been receptive. Our people have voted me in a number of times. They've never let me down in any election. So they continue to assist us, and they continue to remain with us, hoping, knowing and believing that we will be able to deliver. And we are fighting against the odds, but we will deliver.
The Maldives has always been, as you very rightly said, the friend of the Sri Lankans. You are a politician who has a lot of experience, being in the country, being outside the country, and your political knowledge has vastly enhanced what is happening in your country. I might be wrong in asking you this, but do you have a message for the politicians of our country as well?
Well, I think, of course, I am very young compared to the senior politicians here. For instance, your Prime Minister is the most experienced politician in almost probably the world now. And all the other leading politicians here, they are very, very seasoned and very thoughtful, very intellectual people. So, I wouldn't say that I am qualified for that. But I like to point one little thing. You produce, I'm told, 1,300 megawatts of electricity through diesel at a cost of, I am told, 30 cents a unit.
Yes.
Now, renewables can do the same thing at a cost, I am told, at 20 cents a unit. So this adds up to $1.1 billion of saving a year. Now, when we were in government, we tried to make the country carbon neutral. And we did an investment plan for that. We did a framework for that. And we were able to attract a number of investors for that. But unfortunately, the government changed and these investors lost interest. But they're still there. And I'm sure they're willing to come to Sri Lanka. And so I am very encouraged by your President and your Prime Minister working on the renewable energy, the carbon neutral ideas for Sri Lanka. So my view is that although you have a difficulty, that doesn't mean that you should be bogged down in that difficulty. You should carve out other lines and come out and be more engaged in these other strategies as well. Again, I must say I am seeing this happening and I'm learning it from you. And I'm sure that it is going on a proper trajectory. I have admiration for your people. Actually, I keep saying it again and again and again. Tell me a country out of civil conflict, out of civil war, of a very bloody civil war, and then still remaining intact. But you probably reach your target of 5 million tourists probably in the next 2-3 years. I think last year you reached 1 million.
Yes.
This year you probably would reach 2 million. Your other industries are also doing good. So for me, this is really a gem of a country.
Thank you very much, former President Nasheed, for being here on our show with us here. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and on behalf of News First, we wish you all the good luck that you can get for your successful events in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.